So now I'm going to focus on the Indigenous cultures, particularly because I'm in Australia and we have got wonderful pictures of Indigenous artists showing us how they've been visited all through history. And here's a beautiful one by artist Teddy Chesels. There's another one to be shown next. And this is an interesting one. It was a gentleman in Alice Springs near Uluru who gave me a copy or a print of this wonderful artwork from an Aborigine artist. And she said this: the planets are half a day's journey. They're friendly and just watch the Aboriginal way of life. They have no guns, spears, or weapons. The air on their planet is food. The green uniforms protect from Earth diseases. These space people speak all languages. The elders say the space people showed them how to grow food, find water, and showed them amethyst stones for healing, which is really important here in terms of what we are connecting to. And so many of the children are connecting to crystals and understanding the nature of crystals. So the next slide, please. Now I'm going to introduce a wonderful lady I've known several months now who lives in my location. She's a beautiful soul. She's a grandmother of, I think, 5 grandchildren she has. She was a nurse and a social worker, but she is an artist. And she has said this: the star people have always been here before the dream time in painting and stories. They help connecting the land, Mother Earth, and crystals. Connections through music, art, plant essences, nature, crystals, and healing, helping to recharge the land and the portals of energy points. Now, what you're seeing on the right is an activation code that she didn't fully understand. She was bringing in these several months ago and didn't understand what she was doing other than she was driven to do it. And now when we talked, she realized exactly what was going on. And it was a great relief to her because she was beginning to wonder whether she was going a bit crazy. And this is what she did as an activation code, but I'm going to explain and show you some more of the codes that she's bringing in. So the next slide, please. This is her art, and she's does wonderful artwork. And again, very interesting. There's a lot of dots, as well as you notice with the hands as well, that are very, very Indigenous in terms of their perspective. But she is, a very talented artist. And she's I think this is preparing many of those that are bringing in the codes often have a talent with art, or if it's music, they're bringing it through the music. Next slide, please. She told me this: she was speaking a language as a small child. She was really about 4 years old, talking to the old ones, the star beings. And she said, I saw some of them were blue, some were tall and green, different shapes, and some were very alien looking. She saw the greens and the blues the most. I was closed down for a while due to other cultures with religions that impacted on me and blocked me, and I couldn't get home, as she called it. What she was saying was often, more conventional religions were imposed on her, and she was told she shouldn't be talking to the old ones. So she was shut down. She said, it began again when I started soul healing, meditation, crystal bowl frequencies, to hold and to put pen to paper and get my head out of the way. It came up, down, across, around the page. It came in fast. I felt I needed more hands to keep up. I didn't know what I was doing until I spoke to you. And it was when I saw what she was doing, I said, do you know what you're doing? And she said, no, other than I've got to do it. And then I showed her some other images of codes, and I explained to her what was going on. And it's coming in thick and fast now. So the next slide, please. These are the different forms that she's bringing in. And this is what's really interesting. It's not necessarily one type of script. And she's aware there's several different origins to some of the script that she's writing now. And as she was explaining, as Emma Stone was explaining, that sometimes it's across, sometimes it's right to left, left to right, down, up, diagonally, or whatever. And they literally are coming in thick and fast. And as we heard from Tracy Taylor, some of them are clearing, realigning DNA. Some of them are healing. Some of them are information. So we're getting a whole smorgasbord of information coming through these scripts. And that is why they're so important. Here's some more of the scripts that she's doing. Sometimes it's in color, as you can see with the hands, and you'll find a lot of experiences, if you look at their artwork, have hands where they're showing chakras and what have you as well. There's something very significant about that. And so I think it's really important that if this is what you're producing, there's a very important reason, and about accessing that awareness within you to help you understand what's going on, because you do know on some level. Okay. And this is a picture of artwork that Liz did many years ago in 2008. And it was her dreaming pathways. And she believes that this seemed to be more personal to her on one level. She's now identified many more energy lines. It may be the lines of energy power, maybe as we understand them to be ley lines or power points across the globe. And what was interesting is she did this triangle, which I'll explain. She's got more information about that triangle that's in the center there. But these were her own, she thought some will call them song lines. And that is often how they're understood by the Indigenous cultures in Australia. But energy lines, ley lines, but they were, she believed, her personal ones. But I think there was more than that going on there. What we've discovered is, when I asked her now in today, looking back on that picture, what was in that triangle, and you will see when it's turned another way, it looks very much like it might be a craft. And I think that's in the next one that I've next slide I think I've done. I'll explain that to you. Information, what is the source, I've asked her, and she then quite spontaneously, without really thinking too much about it, mentioned Venus, Algoria, Andromeda, Pleiades, Lemuria, and Mantis. The new children can understand and transcribe the codes, is what was also conveyed. But it's often quite interesting until you ask someone, who is it that you're tapping into? They haven't even thought to ask that question. So why are they important? I began at 3 to begin with. Now I speak at least 5. Bringing in the languages that are not traditional is a good thing, as language connects us all as a mob, which is, a group, a tribe, and a culture back to Mother Earth, and it's universal. It needs to happen. It needs to be shared, and to know that you are not crazy, because one of the big issues, particularly in the Aboriginal Indigenous cultures, they've had a really hard time in honoring their spirituality and honoring their understanding and their connection to the star beings. Next slide, please. So this is a script from the Light Beings with Mike Oram, who is a wonderful gentleman that wrote about his own stories in the UK. And he was only 4 years old. And with the next slide, I'll show you what he was saying at 4 years old to his parents. This is what he told his mother at 4 years old. And it's in his book, Does It Rain in Other Dimensions? A wonderful book. And many years ago, he told me, he said to his mother, there will be a change in human consciousness. The energy is headed this way, and the essence of this energy is light. The energy will repair our DNA. It will make us complete in who we really are. This was what he was trying to convey to his mother at 4 years old. And so what we have is the children again reminding us and awakening us to the fact that we're all here because something major is ahead of us, and we've come to be part of it. And this is really difficult to remember with so much going on that is really hard at the moment, that this is now the transition. And like any birth, it's challenging and it's difficult, but we know it's going to happen because too many of these beautiful souls have come to this planet with their awareness and understanding to help this happen. Next slide, please. So we're awaiting arrival. And what really for me is the most important part of this is understanding that we are not only awaiting arrival of our star family, but we are the star family. And we're waiting an arrival of the rest of human consciousness to catch up and wake up and realize who they are. So we're waiting the arrival of activation and consciousness. And ultimately, that's really what we're all doing today. and what we've done over this conference, and what so many beautiful souls have done in this conference, is actually put out bravely, courageously, and often with derision from more mainstream communities, is that this is all crazy, this is all airy-fairy nonsense and whatever. And I hope that even with this small presentation, this, I can show that it is based on real tangibility, and it is real, and it is important that we honor how we feel, even if we've been shut down, and many of us have educational systems that are deliberately shutting you down. And one of the things that I will say here is what I have done a lot of more work on, although I work with hypnosis as well, where somebody has missing time, or they've had other experiences where they've seen beings, or wanted to understand whether they've had experiences as a child or what have you. We can explore all of that and help connect the dots. But the other thing that's been profound, and more work I've done in that field, is the numbers of people right across the planet. Doesn't matter what culture, what profession you are, and I've worked with all sorts, from farmers to, PhDs, that are opening up to this awareness, opening up to the fact that they're having some form of communication. And the one thing that they've all struggled with is giving themselves validation and honoring their experiences, because it's been such a program of disinformation on this planet, where you're not given the respect that you are a multidimensional, intuitive, enlightened, amazing being that's come to this planet to help shift consciousness and to waken up those of the soul family. And what I hope today, with what I've shown, is that there's real tangibility to this. There is real science behind it. It's just, and we have to understand that ultimately consciousness is primary. And this is what we are. We're a conscious being that is operating not just in a 3D, but a multidimensional one. And if we can bring them together, then we become whole. And that's what I think the star beings that are helping us are encouraging us to do. So ultimately, we can be part of the galactic community. I hope that's made sense to everyone, or at least they've enjoyed it. I will be talking about the past life connection in the next event that I'm doing with Neil. And in that, I'm showing it isn't just this lifetime, but there's been other lifetimes where we've tried to do this, but didn't necessarily have the success that I think we're going to have this time. So very, very important to understand that there's many journeys that have brought us to this point. And for some of us, it's the first time being on this planet, so it doesn't feel like home. And others have been on this planet and found it very hard to shift and make it happen. But this time, I believe, it's without question, it's going to happen. And you're all part of it. Right.
Oh, fantastic.
Beautiful presentation, Mary.
Thank you. I hope it's made sense too. I like to.
You said that you closed out with that sometimes, some other times it may not have happened, but this time I think it's going to happen. What did you mean by that? You mean that we've tried this before? We've done this before?
Oh, yes. And one of the ladies I worked with in hypnosis, we found out that the reason she's come back is because when she was in Atlantis, they tried to create this and make it happen, and they failed. And in my book also, it was a young man who was supposed to bring in the artwork to trigger consciousness. And what he found was, because of the First World War, we went to war, and so that opportunity was lost, and he wasn't able to create the artwork that was going to trigger consciousnhave and awareness. So he's incarnated this time so that he can do that. So I'm finding more and more those links that from the soul that have had different roles to play. And I know we've heard the stories from some of the beautiful souls in these 4 days that have this understanding too.
Yes.
So we've had opportunities, and this time it's the stars are dictating that this is the moment for the awakening, right? And I'm curious, like, a lot of your presentations have to do with children that and their experiences. how do people find you? Is it just word of mouth within the community? Are they mostly in Australia? Like, how does it work?
Well, some of it's because of the book, The New Human, the book that I wrote several years ago now. And what fascinated me, and I will say this to this wonderful audience, is I did wonder where they would think Mary's lost the plot, as we'd say over here, but it had to be their truth. And what I discovered was not only were teachers that were aware and awake, but the psychologists aware and awake, as well as parents. And they find me and tell me about their children and what's going on. And the psychologists who are awake, the ones that have gone into psychology for more than just one reason, maybe to understand their own journey, have said to me, how do I help children when the parents are asleep? And yet this child is no question, she's a star seed. And I'm trying to help them because they struggle at school. They often get bullied at school because they may be healers, they may be highly sensitive. And so they're tuning into the energy around them and what have you, and don't cope. And the other children, not as aware, often bully because they don't fit in. And so many of the parents have written to me and said, well, what can I do about that? And I said, well, there's only one option. If they're not happy in a school environment or whatever, there's only really homeschooling is the only other option, unless you find others. And that's been because some of them have really wanted to end their lives because it's been so toxic for them and what have you. And I remember one, Zach in my book, he told me when he was 11, his family all said to him, will you stop being weird and wonderful and talking about all this weird stuff that you talk about, that you're tuning into this, that, and the other. Just be normal and do normal things, and say normal things. And he said, Mary, I tried it. I shut myself down and all I did was just talk the way they did and share things they did. He said, I became so depressed, I wanted to end my life. He said, the only way, he said, I could survive was open up again. But he said, the trouble was, and you go to school and you're tapping into everybody else's emotions, feelings, and what's going on with them. It's also crucifying, he said, because, you're not capable always of shutting yourself down sufficiently that you can deal with that. And that's why so many can't handle, going to supermarkets and go to big areas where there's crowds, because they're so sensitive to everything, especially healers, the empaths. There's so many children that are being born as empaths now, and they can tap into everything. I remember talking about a little 8-year-old who said she was a hybrid water being. She came from a water planet, and she was part water being and part human. And she was saying that when she looks in the mirror, she's seeing her water being self. She's not seeing a human self. And she explained that when she hears music, she taps into not just the music itself, but the frequency of it. And it takes her to the person who created the music and what's actually going on for them in terms of energetically. So this is the kind of sensitivity that we're talking about. And, and if the parents are blind to that, and sometimes one might be awake, the other one isn't, and the other one that's not awake thinks the other parent's crazy. So you've got all this other human dynamics going on that make life for a starseed child sometimes really, really difficult. And that's why I think the more that we can educate and put out what this is going on, the more parents that are open to it can help these beautiful souls that have come in to change and help us change this planet, which is, why I'm so excited about that, is because I know it's everywhere. It's not in one particular place. It's right across the globe, even if it's not fully understood in terms that we understand it. It is happening everywhere, and these children are everywhere, and we're hearing them on talk shows and being extra talented with their singing, and you listen to an 11-year-old singing like a 30-year-old, and they're coming out and the frequencies that they're bringing in, and I'm thinking, that's it. There's another one bringing in the frequencies. You can see it everywhere, and I know you know what I'm talking about.
And Mary, this is why we refer so many people to you, because you have a way of presenting the information that appeals to people who maybe this is so foreign to them, the parents especially. I've referred so many people to you because I know that they've been chastised by family members and they're not understood. And I remember the first time I saw a presentation you did on YouTube. It was so many years ago. It was like a big amphitheater. You might have been in England, maybe, and it was like a big amphitheater that you were speaking to people, and you talked a lot about your nursing background, and you didn't sound crazy like a lot of a lot of people are considered crazy when they start talking like this. And so you have been a way shower to how to get the language there to connect the children with their parents, with the school system, and bring what feels like rational thought to something that seems so abstract to so many people, where they just can't, they feel like it's unbelievable. Like that light language, I can't tell you how many people make fun of my friends that speak light language, or that sing it, or that write it, or that, in my world, in my reality, they think it's a bunch of, crazy stuff, but you make it not crazy. And that presentation really hit home. I know there were tears in my eyes as you were sharing it. Some of my friends were texting me, "Oh my gosh, this is incredible." They're not even writing in the chat. They're texting to me. Shout out to all my friends that are watching right now, because they're in awe of this information finally coming out and feeling validated for who they are and what they've gone through. Because there's a lot of trauma when people come out and share this. So that's my 2 cents. And I just wanted to thank you so much for what you're doing for all of us.
Thank you, Michelle. And it is really sad, because I was in Sweden some years ago, and one of the young men, he was about 28, and he said that what he'd done was he was amongst friends, and he came out with the star language, and they called the police, and he ended up in hospital because they thought he was crazy.
I hear that. I hear so many stories like
this is so it's often just the language, Michelle, in what you're actually saying is how you say it. Instead of saying someone's psychic, for example, I'll say they're intuitive. Intuitive's okay. Psychic isn't okay, because it means you're probably a bit crazy or whatever. So it's just about finding the right language in whatever. And when I was in the expo in England, I kept my presentation a lot more 3D. Let's put it like
refined. The word refined came in.
Yeah. There's a lot of nuts and bolts, as I call them. The nuts and bolts. But you know what I mean, Neil, because you were there. So I had to keep it very, very grounded, very tangible. But you can still get it in if you provide them with the background and as much of the understanding of the science behind it, which we need anyway, because it helps us ground it. But to understand the process.
Yeah. You know what really helped me when you were talking in your presentation, I had heard before that I'm a key, and I'm like, and it was Syrians, and I'm like, I don't know what that means. And I felt frustration from them. They said, "You're the key." When you explained that the key, that they're actually the symbols, and they said it's with the frequency, and the symbols, they told me they're not symbols, that they're portals and manifestation of creation. And I couldn't really quite understand that, because I was trying to understand that initially with just my human brain instead of just feeling it from my heart. But when you explained it, then when we talk about frequency, then we're talking about the whole Tesla thing and frequency of healing and all sorts of stuff. And I feel a great sense of relief that you explained that, because I couldn't understand the connection, what that meant, and they couldn't explain it to me really in human terms. And so when you said it's the language, so really it's the language, and it's the essence of that frequency within us. It's not, it could be written, it could be, spoken, and that it can also help each other with far as healing and remembering. So I didn't realize how powerful just speaking light languages, and how now I'm having different ones come out. And I think that I don't know why. And when they come out, I'll know what they are. And the whole, people don't know why they know things. I don't know why I know how to build a Stargate. I mean, I did horrible in math and science in school. I was bored usually, but I think what you said about all of that and how you gave evidence of that gave me a lot of relief, because there's a lot of things within me I don't always speak forth. You know, at Portal to Ascension, you can speak forth these things, but you have to, like you said, be careful and use discretion where you speak of all of these things.
I think what's been helpful is that, you know, I've been a counselor for 35 years, and you meet all sorts of people, all different professions, awareness and what have you. And I always taught to speak the language of the person that's in the room. So it's an academic, you use academic language. If it's, you know, a tradie, you'll talk like the tradie, so that you can connect and whatever. And so for me, I look at the audience and say, where's their level? And my team say, this is what you can say here, and this is what you can say over there. I know you all do that because you're all connected anyway, but I get the team telling me, you know, this is okay, but you know.
Well, it's
You're
important.
safe here.
It's safe here. And I love that you took it to a different level, because it was at Portal to Ascension, and you could go to that safer level to talk like we all can, because you were speaking to your people. Even as a child, the childhood information, especially in your book, I identified with all those as a child, and certain things that there was no one to talk to about that was painful. I remember sitting in the energy and knowing stuff about everyone in there and how I hated being there, and I wanted to just create and draw, and it was difficult.
Yeah. And this is, you know, for me as a grandmother, you know, I've got 6 beautiful grandchildren. I want them to be all they can be. Yeah. And we all want this for the future of this planet. And the only way is to assist as much as we can. And ultimately, they'll tell us what they need. You know, we won't need to work it out, because they'll tell us, this is what you need to do. And all we need to do is keep them safe, so that they can actually come here to do. And that is my mission, if you like, is to do what I can to help the parents help the kids, or help the educators help the kids, or whoever else is supporting them, as you're doing in owning your truth right now.
I found it. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Tamara.
Just real quick, I just think we need a Junior Jedi Academy that all these special children around the world can go to, that because they're going to be needing this at some point, right? We're going to need to have everyone watching. Some of us are going to have to support that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What were you saying?
We're going to have to support it. I found it really reassuring, Mary. You know, you're the last speaker, and you brought in this message of, look, this awakening is going to happen no matter what. It's already in the stars. My clients see it. I found that extremely positive note to end on, and the conference on.
Powerful.
This is going to happen. All the forces in the galactic center are geared to us having this ascension uplift, and nothing's going to stand in its way. And that's a great, that's a great way to complete.
Right. And it's a testament to the new generation is coming in awakened, right?
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to close out with your presentation, Mary, because I know you're kind of giving us hope to show us that that's happening. You know, I often feel that, you know, children, they end up forgetting their lives, their past lives, and the connection to source, right? Because of the conditioning of society. And I often wonder, like, is that a vibratory frequency thing of this planet, or is it just the way that we project our own beliefs on them? And what would happen if you had a conscious family that continuously asked them questions and probed them with, do you remember your past lives? Where are you from? Asking those questions and being open to them even explaining about their imaginary friends. And maybe there is some sort of book or some sort of textbook we can eventually create that shows the families and parents on how to cultivate the gifts and memories rather than do the opposite, make them forget.
A workbook for the parents, a workbook for the child or the children, and they can work together with it if they're so open.
Or games, playing games with your kids.
So many of the children and adults that talk to me say I was shut down when I saw things, and when I saw Granddad after he died, and I'd say I see Granddad. And Liz Childs, she said, you know, an Indigenous grandmother, she said to me, Mary, I was hearing them, I was seeing them, and then I'm talking to the old ones or whatever, and I was told, you can't do that. you know, this is wrong. And she was brought up in one of the, well, programmed into Catholic religion, and said, this is not cool. It's not okay. You can't do it. And so she shut down because she was told it wasn't okay. And she said it's only in recent times that she's allowed herself to, with her healing that she's going through, she said she started to own more of that. But she didn't know when she was doing this. And I saw her writing. I said, what are you doing? So I've been, this stuff, it just keeps coming through, and they keep pushing me to write it and what have you. And I said, yeah. I looked at it and I said, you know what this is, don't you? And she said, no. I said, these are codes and these are scripts from, and I brought some of my books and showed her, and she couldn't believe it. She said, I had no idea what I was doing. And then, of course, she started to ask the questions then. She said, I just thought I was just, you know, I'm a bit crazy anyway, you know, she sort of saying.
You know, Mary, you're gutsy, because I know that you have, you know, for mainstream, had attacks or whatever, but you have such a passion and believe in what you're doing, and you really fight for your clients and people that are like that, because you know that they're genuine and they're telling the truth and they're passionate. And so I think that the time is such that we're all coming out, the ones that have been here, that have been silent, and the new ones that are already awake. And it feels like a momentum is happening. And I think that now's the time to keep pushing forward. And that's why I always say we're stronger as one, because we're saying the same thing, maybe in different ways, but we're saying the same thing. And I'm just excited about your work. I know you're going to be doing so much more even. And I appreciate you hanging in there, because I know I've followed you. I know it hasn't always been easy, and I just send you love because you're gutsy. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mary.
I just say I'm a crazy 70-year-old who really doesn't care a stuff whether people think I'm crazy or menopausal or getting Alzheimer's or, you know, dementia or whatever. I really don't, it doesn't matter at my age, you know. So I can say it's not so much courage as I really don't care. You know?
That's the great thing about age. You don't care.
Setting an example for all of us, because
Yes.
you know, instead of being worried about the judgments and other people, you know, maybe not agreeing with us, can we be fully ourselves and be our own energy and be authentic to what we know is true?
Exactly.
That's the invitation for all of us here. Really, the invitation to just be ourselves, stand in our truth, even in the face of all the judgment that comes our way. When we stay in our heart and stand in our truth, we're modeling this energy. We're modeling what it looks like to be the new human.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to be a star seed. To be a star
Yes.
being. We've modeled that the entire weekend, you know, like we have human qualities as a star being. And we've brought them both together. And how do you live with this? How do you grow? How do you walk on the planet and relate to other people who are human? Knowing you're human yourself. I mean, the truth is we're still human.
Exactly.
Oh, she just fell off the table.
Again. Thank you, Joan. Oh my goodness. And it is true. It's like, it's all about remembering where we came from, our origins, and feeling that in our heart, and really allowing our heart guidance to lead us on our path as star seeds, because all we have is our inner compass. Recently, I had a client say that I'm awakening my inner church.
Oh.
Right. And that is so true. It's like awakening our heart's vibration and our frequency and just allowing it to lead us.
Yeah.
I love
We're
that.
doing it. It's happening.
You know,
The quickening.
Exactly.
Mary, thank you so much. Really appreciate you and everything you do. And I'm excited to see you next week.
Thank you.
Yay.
Yep.
Next
Wonderful
week.
job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Talk soon.